A Layer 1 blockchain like Ethereum is the hardware of the ecosystem. It provides security and basic infrastructure. Layer 2s like Arbitrum chains act as operating systems, offering faster, more scalable, and decentralized solutions. Just like software needs regular updates to stay secure and efficient, Arbitrum is rolling out improvements to defend against common blockchain attacks. Welcome to Whiteboard Crypto, the #1 YouTube channel for crypto education, and here we explain topics of the cryptocurrency world using analogies, stories, and examples so that anyone can easily understand them. In this video, I'll explain some common attacks against blockchains and how Arbitrum plans to resolve those attacks with their new Bounded Liquidity Delay protocol update. A huge shout out to the Arbitrum Foundation for sponsoring this video and supporting our work. And a quick note, this video is more about what happens on the back end of Arbitrum chains. A user who wants to send and receive transactions on Arbitrum doesn't actually see any of this happen, but it's still a critical security upgrade, so it's worth explaining. Arbitrum 1 is a Layer 2 optimistic rollup built on Ethereum. In this system, transactions and their results get posted to Ethereum. If those results are not valid, they can be challenged, which initiates a dispute using Arbitrum's fraud-proof system. If they're not disputed, they'll simply be considered valid once an amount of time, called the challenge period, elapses, hence the term optimistic. Until now, Arbitrum chains used a fraud-proof mechanism which was permissioned, meaning for Arbitrum 1, only a specific set of validators, who were approved by the Arbitrum DAO, could participate in disputing anything incorrect that was posted to the L1. These validators checked the challenge, and if fraud was detected, the incorrect output state would be challenged and corrected. However, for Arbitrum chains to become truly permissionless to secure, anyone must be able to initiate a dispute, not just members of the approved set of validators. But this creates some problems. If anyone can challenge an output state, then malicious entities could easily clog up the network by paying to submit endless challenges, or in other words, spam and abuse the system. And because there are a limited number of validators, and they each have to resolve the disputes, the more disputes there are, the longer that will take, and also the more expensive it will be, and the easier it would be for a malicious actor to delay withdrawals to the parent chain. To solve these problems, Off-Chain Labs, the core contributor of Arbitrum, is releasing an update called BoLD, short for Bounded Liquidity Delay, that aims to make fraud proofs permissionless. And this will allow anyone to handle these disputes and keep the system honest without the clogging or the spam problem we mentioned earlier. This update will make Arbitrum chains more decentralized, efficient, and honest. Let's dig into how this system works. Under the new BoLD system, there are 3 types of actors. Validators are anyone who runs a node that verifies activity on the blockchain and keeps a record of what happened. With their list of activities, they can detect problems within the transaction, and if they find a problem, they can submit a challenge. Proposers are the specific validators who propose assertions to the L1 about the results of the transaction happening on L2 to advance the chain. Proposing assertions means that they create a transaction on the L1 that includes a snapshot of the current data in the blockchain as they believe it to be, otherwise known as asserting the blockchain state. That information can include everyone's balances, who owns how much of what, and other contract data. But these proposers do need to deposit a bond in ETH in order to be a proposer. However, they can withdraw the bond once their assertion is confirmed. So that makes this bond sort of like a security deposit for the right to become a proposer. The third type of actor is a challenger, and challengers are proposers who deposit a bond in ETH in order to challenge or defend an assertion on L1. Importantly, bonding ETH, as well as making other moves in the challenge protocol, costs some L1 gas because it is a transaction on the L1 blockchain. Honest challengers, though, will be reimbursed for their gas costs, and attackers who meant harm will have their whole bond taken by the Arbitrum DAO. In fact, the defenders actually receive 1% of the attacker's bond as a reward. That may seem low, but it's because a higher reward might actually incentivize defenders to encourage more attacks so that they would get paid more. However, no reward wouldn't encourage people to defend the network. Thus, 1% was agreed to be the best choice by the Arbitrum DAO. Let's move on to the nitty-gritty. The act of bonding ETH can be thought of as more like a security deposit. You're locking up your assets to prove that you are committed to doing the work needed to honestly secure the blockchain. Bonded funds can be taken away for bad behavior, which is what incentivizes good behavior. Right now, the proposer bond is 3,600 ETH, which is a lot of money. Fortunately, BoLD implements a mechanism where people can trustlessly pool their funds to come up with the bond amount together, meaning 3,600 people could each bond 1 ETH individually and all be validators, making the system much more decentralized. Let's take a look at how a simple, undisputed batch of transactions goes through. Step 1. Sequencers bundle incoming transactions into batches of transactions. These batches are recorded on the L1 parent chain for everyone to see. Step 2. Transactions in these batches are recorded by the Arbitrum validators in the order that they are received and bundled together into a special rollup block, or R block, otherwise known as an assertion. Validators bond their ETH to the assertion and propose it to the parent chain, making them not only a validator, but a proposer now too. And this is basically like signing off that they think it's correct or valid. Step 3. A roughly 7-day long challenge period begins where other validators can create their own assertions locally compared to what the original proposer proposed and dispute the validity of the observed assertion, if their local assertion is different. This is why withdrawals on the Arbitrum chain using the canonical bridge take almost a week to complete. In this example, let's assume there's no disputes during the challenge period, so we move on to the next step. Step 4. After the rough 7 days, if undisputed, everyone agrees the proposer's assertion is true and the protocol finalizes the assertion, and now it can no longer be disputed. Okay, but how does that process change if an assertion is disputed? Well, step 1, we start off with the same thing here. Sequencers bundle incoming transactions into what are called batches of transactions, which is then posted to the L1. Step 2, validators then take those transactions and compute the assertion. Those validators bond their ETH to an assertion on-chain, which makes them a proposer. Step 3, this is where the process differs. During the roughly 7-day challenge period, maybe another validator challenges the assertion's validity by producing a different assertion and bonding their ETH to it. Step 4, the dispute resolution process begins. And this is where BoLD comes in. Basically, rather than recomputing every transaction in the batch, participants go back and forth and try to narrow down the specific single step or operation that resulted in their different assertions. We start by dividing up the whole history of the blockchain's transactions into halves, called bisections. We decide which half we agree on, and then we cut that section in half. And we keep doing this until we find the first block that we disagree on. And then we do it to the block until we find the first transaction that we disagree on. And then we do it to the transaction until we find the specific step of computation that we disagree on. And then we simply use the computation built into the parent chain to determine who is correct about one step of execution. A more technical explanation of this is that we use history commitments, which are posted alongside assertions and represent a commitment to every sequence of bisections that could possibly make the assertion. An important difference between BoLD and the previous challenge protocol is that BoLD enables an all versus all contest between people defending different assertions, rather than requiring a series of 1 versus 1 contests. Because the contests all happen at once, BoLD can guarantee a maximum delay no matter how many people are competing in support of different assertions. Step 5, the dispute resolution process continues. It can take up to a total of 2 challenge periods since the posting of the first assertion. As dispute resolution continues, each step, or each bisection, writes information to the L1 parent chain. At some point before the end of the 14 days, the L1 chain will have enough information to determine a winning assertion, or the assertion that should be confirmed. At this point, the challenge ends. Now, let's look at 2 examples of common attacks and how BoLD will defend against them. Attack type 1, resource exhaustion. This is basically when attackers submit multiple challenges that include incorrect assertions at various levels of computation. The point is that they're trying to make the validators do a ton of work to overwhelm them by making the computation difficult and time-consuming, which requires more gas costs and higher bonds. BoLD makes this kind of attack much more difficult because the attackers, to be successful, would have to spend so much more money than the defenders defending the network. Specifically, when attackers are proven wrong, they simply lose the funds they used in the attack. In addition, the defenders can work together since there is less individual risk of needing too many resources to successfully defend. BoLD purposefully makes it expensive to delay withdrawals through a resource exhaustion attack compared to other chains. Attack type 2, delay attacks. Now this one is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. The attacker tries to delay the amount of time it takes to post transactions to the L1 by submitting multiple sequential challenges. This can block up the network progression and make withdrawals take much longer. BoLD fixes this kind of attack by allowing parallel challenge resolution, which is just a fancy way of saying that more than one dispute can be resolved at the same time, or all versus all. Before BoLD, each dispute had to be handled separately, one after the other, or 1 versus 1. So wrapping this video up, in summary, BoLD introduces 4 key things that help protect the Arbitrum chains. 1. Permissionless fraud proofs where anyone can participate in defending and advancing the network, and they can work together rather than independently. 2. There is a new economic model of bonding, where there is a small reward to be honest and defend against dishonest attacks, and there's a huge cost to attack, and when proven as a dishonest attacker, you lose a lot of funds. Number 3, parallel challenge resolution, where more than one challenge can be solved at the same time. And 4, there is a maximum amount of time for challenges to be resolved. BoLD makes users' funds safer by making it much harder for attackers to cause problems in the network. Previously, if the blockchain was attacked or incorrect disputes were made, users could find their funds lost or locked up for longer than a week. But with this update, that's much less of a concern. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I really hope you learned something. And most of all, I hope to see you in our next video.